Get more people.
Yep. More than the three we had when we were upstairs just eating pizza ourselves. I think you're great. You might guess. Oh. Well, Ed working on it, it's not the same. Maybe, more cheese or less sauce. Functional tests for iOS. Check, check, check.
Alright, I think we're about to get started here. Welcome to GDG Music City / National Local Development Group. We're still sorting that out. You can find us. We announce our meetings here on Meetup. That's place to RSVP, fix RSVP. After the meeting, though, we'd like to post the Hangout on air, sometimes a slide deck. We won't talk about. We'll post it on the G+ site. We also have a Twitter page. I guess we'll talk about GDG, G+ stuff there. LinkedIn, we've already reviewed. We have a survey tonight. If you'd like to enter, you can win either a full-size card or a Chromecast. So this is the link to the survey. We'll have that later. I'd like to introduce Lauren Mayer. Have your notes on here. He's a software developer who goes on a PHP framework called V.
It's the Rapid Application Development.
Okay.
It's a branded series. Yeah, by Pat.
Okay, cool. She also founded Plum Power Software. It's computer creator. Okay.
And both of those were with Tim, who's my co-author and co-founder over there. All right. All right. Well, I gave this talk at Coder Fair in the fall. Was anybody at Coder Fair? Did you guys hear my talk? I feel like maybe you did. This will be familiar. Anybody else? So the guys asked me if I could give a talk about some mobile development stuff, and this is what I had. So.
You can zoom out. I don't know what it is.
It's still, no, it's still doing. Ah, there we go. Yay, thanks guys. Okay, so I call it.
Right here. Yeah.
New jewelry. Don't let me walk off with this, I will. It's going to be a parent for anybody who hasn't been doing mobile development or mobile testing why it's Savior of Risk and Sanity very soon. I'm Lauren O'Mara. As Ed already mentioned, co-founded Sunflower Software. We do web and mobile consulting. We have a product called Doc Launcher, which is a cross-platform team document sharing system. And I'd like to kind of get an idea about where everybody here is coming from. I know you guys do iOS development. Right? Oh. Starting it? Okay. By show of hands, how many here are iOS? Okay. And how many people do testing? How many do testing as their primary job? Okay. And everybody else does testing as developers. Because you need to do testing. Some of this will. And how many of you are already automating your iOS testing? I'm interested in this. Okay. Cool. Yeah. I think that we could talk a bit in here somewhere. We should talk after. So what I'm going to do is share some of the lessons that I learned from doing this and some resources that I found helpful. And then I'm definitely going to show you how I got set up. And if you don't already love testing and don't already want to do tests, I hope to convert you to that way of doing things. It is increased my development speed and improved my output so much. And I think most people know this. I hear a lot of talks at conferences about testing, but if you're not already convinced, I hope you're convinced after the talk. And please jump in with questions. This is really informal and a little bit rusty from the fall. So if you have a question about something I'm going to do my best to answer, or I'll look it up and get back to you afterwards. The app that I'm using to demo this is a real customer app. It's something that we did develop for a customer. A lot of the work that we do is subcontracting. So we're either augmenting a company's team or we're augmenting a consulting firm's team, and what we make for them is theirs. So I can't share the code. And what I did for this demonstration is I got permission to take the guts of their app and completely change the content of it. So it doesn't at all, it works exactly the same and it doesn't at all resemble what we did for them. I can't share the code with you. This is how I used to feel about testing. I like this picture because it's pretty much what I did. Anytime testing would come up. But like I said, what convinced me is the benefits to my development. I'm not a tester. For those of you that are testers, for those of you that are developers, you know that it's a very different mindset. People who are good developers are not necessarily good testers. People who are good testers are not necessarily good developers. Both have very much their own craft and very much their own, in my opinion, very much their own way of thinking and benefits and talents to the end result. So as a developer, the benefit to me is it automates the repetition. If I make a functional test and I'm working on a feature, I don't have to, I do both web and mobile development. I don't have to go through a form and type in every field of the form every time I want to test some bug that's at the bottom of the form. And I love anything that will let me record, because I don't want to have to sit down and figure out how to code up a test. So what I liked about this system when I found it is there's a record feature, JavaScript, the libraries on it, and all of it flows together to make tests very quickly. And I'm back in the code and I can just click a button to do the repetition for me. Then when you get into supporting your product and you deal with regression tests, if you have a really good suite of tests and you make a change to something, you know with pretty good confidence. For our product, Doc Launcher, one of our team developed a huge suite of tests, and it has saved us so much harder. Every time we add on it, we catch so many things just in the testing. Just running the tests that he already wrote a long time ago has been so beneficial. And I tried to think of a third R, so rapidness. It sped up my development. And the biggest thing was dealing with complexity. So this is the actual data flow for the app that I'm going to demonstrate with. Each of those little green nodes is a screen of the app. And when I started developing it, we didn't have a plan for testing. I inherited it, as our work often does, I inherited it from the developer, from the project. There's no intention of ever doing testing. They thought it was going to be more simpler than this. And as soon as I started developing it and I started to troubleshoot problems with the customer, flicking through every single one of those screens, at the end of this data flow is a calculation. So you imagine the customer's telling me the calculation isn't coming out right, and I'm going to have to click through this every time I'm trying to, fix the problem. Quickly, I had to turn to something. So I'm going to try not to flip them back and forth between my slides. I'm going to try to put my slides here, and all of this is in slides that I'll post to the group somewhere, so you don't have to worry about the reference material. And I'll just refer to it so that I can hopefully show you how it works. Let me first show you the app so you're familiar with what we're dealing with. I can tell you about my customer's app that it was a tool for a mechanical product for quoting the product, for getting some information from their potential customer about the use, and recommending an appropriate product at the end. So to take it completely away from that, we developed an insurance quoting application and fictionalized it. So it's Gallifrey Insurance. If you're a Time Lord and you have TARDIS and you need to insure your TARDIS, this is what you want to use. Bear with me for a minute because when it goes from laptop mode to screen mode, the resolution is crazy. And I want to give credit to James again. James helped me with the artwork for this. So for James, I'm showing you and Bella. Okay, now I'm going to take it down smaller because it doesn't fit. All right. To give you a sense of the giant flow, you want your name, you want your age, you want some questions about yourself. And we went to some trouble putting this content together, so I want you guys to be able to enjoy it. And really, every part of the flow works. I'll select the default type and more. Theme that I can live with. Watch me biff it by going outside of the default. No. And then this shows me all the answers to all my questions. So based on each question that you're asked, the logic forks. You may be asked a different question. If you say your TARDIS has a pool, you'll be asked about pool insurance questions. If you say it doesn't have a pool, you'll skip those questions. And then this is the calculation at the end. So imagine there's a problem in the middle. It's not calculating the pool insurance portion right, and you've got to click through all of that. You get the idea. Automation. Okay. So, how do you get started? You've got a project, somebody already started it, it's really big, they have no testing. It's very easy to get started, and like I said, the thing that I love about it is there's a recorder. So, you go to the Instruments panel of Xcode, and you select Automation. The shortcut for Instruments is Command-I. All this is noted in my slides. I for Instruments. Select Automation, right here. Start it up. I'm going to tell you all these little details because a lot of these things were not obvious to me, and they're all documented too. So the first thing you need to do is it's going to fire up a simulator. The instruments are tied to a simulator. So if you're ever going from like doing something in Xcode and running the simulator right out of Xcode, it's a good idea to kill your simulator before you start your tests because there's some weird incompatibilities there. It doesn't always gets the state mixed up from what you were doing to what you start doing. So it's a good idea to kill it, start it fresh. It got me a bunch of times. So when you start up Instruments, stop the recording. I haven't figured out why it's recording. That's part of the regular Instruments if you're familiar with them, and it's not what we use here. You change your view to a script view, and you can name your script. This is where we're going to record. And hit the record button down here. This is the record button that we actually care about. And we need to wait for the simulator to come on the screen. Alright. Now as you click, you'll see the script is being built. And you may notice some things that are happening are not being recorded. You see I typed 1 and it's not being recorded in the script. There's some things where the recorder is not perfect. But it gives you a good starting point. I'm taking it to a slightly different flow for the people who are keeping track of my weird questions. We still get back to this answering question. And it records all of my clicks all the way through. So if I was just troubleshooting one workflow, I just wanted to see one flow through that and get a couple of script. But you're going to have many paths through there, and you're going to want to test all of those paths through there. So ultimately, this might be good for quick development, but if you want to have something comprehensive, you're going to want to make a speed test. You're going to want to record several of these scripts or edit several of these scripts and link them all together. And I should point out, you can get in here and edit it. You can go through and play it from here. And I better let finish. All that you're getting out of the recorder is JavaScript. So if you're already familiar with JavaScript, the syntax is what is used in its familiar. Functions, obviously, are not JavaScript. They're Apple functions. They use the language specification to make their automation scripting language. So you can add more scripts in here. You can import some, you can create a new one, you can import a new one. But I like to go from the command. So the next step for taking it out of here, out of your recorder, and putting it into a place where you can manipulate it is to export it to the command line. You can control-click on here, export it, and save your file, and start building a test suite. I'm going to go ahead and get out of instruments now. You don't actually have to save that. And you don't even actually need Xcode. You're just making tests and running tests at this point. So I have a little confession to make. I wrote this on iOS 6, and I did not have time before this presentation to bring everything up to speed to iOS 7. So if you see labels looking cut off and weird, that's because we changed this for iOS 7 and I didn't update the app to. So I'm dealing with some incompatibilities. Oh, let me show you something. So you see this syntax and it's not very familiar, and you don't really know what the components on the screen are called. There's a tool that's really helpful if you're looking at your screen and you don't know what button. It's the logging the element tree. So you can get yourself, you can click, 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 and get yourself to a screen and then call log element tree to see what elements are available on the screen. Whatever you want to click next or type into. It's a really useful tool for building your scripts. So like for this one, I've got several buttons. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4 buttons down here. You can find them by clicking them, or you can put that into your script and run it. And in the logs, you'll get the details. This little doohickey here that expands, lets you know every component that's there. And that's in this. All right. So we've exported, and I started making myself an automation directory as part of my project. And it doesn't matter in your Xcode project, you can throw directories in there. You know, you have to add them to Xcode to use them with Xcode. So started creating this, and threw my script in here. And now you can start manipulating the JavaScript. So instead of having to type UI target, UIA target, outlook target, you can make it a variable and you can shorten things up. Really should be shortened up even further to include frontmost stack. And I have 3 tests here. No towel, if I answer no, I don't have a towel. Military, or if I want to use the charge for military purposes. And all those just check that I go up to the point, answer the question, and get the right screen, correct screen next. And the final one goes all the way through and gets the calculation. So I have 3 tests that I recorded, and I want to run them all together. So the first thing you need to do is create a sweep file that imports each of your tests. And you want to tell it to use strict. Don't remember now why you want to tell it to use strict, but you do. And then each of my tests here doesn't use a library or anything. It's just the straight reported test that I got out of Xcode. This is pretty simple. I haven't combined anything or consolidated anything. I just went into instruments and recorded, and now I want to run them all together as a suite. So you have to pull out all the files, export each of the files, create a test runner file, and then you need to make a template out of instruments that the command line is going to use to run instruments. So you go back to automation, create a template profile, stop it, and just save a template. Save as template, call it template, and put it in your project. So you see mine is called template.traceTemplate. And you're going to refer to this from the command line. It's just going to have pieces that the runner needs in order to run it from the command line. Then the next command that you're going to need, and this is in my slides, and all the little pieces are explained. But in order to run it from the command line, you need to have a build of the app somewhere where you can get to it from the command line. So you use the Xcode build command to create a build of your app. And tell it, where your project is, what scheme you're using, which configuration you want to use, which SDK you want to use. And really important is you have to have a build directory. You just make it temp. You can make it anywhere on your system. It doesn't matter. Just make the directory and tell it to put it there. I'm sure people who are Meetniks would say they have a particular way that they want to do it. It's not, to me, it's not important how you want to do it, where you want to do it. You just need it. The targeted device family tells you whether it's going to be the iPhone version or the iPad version, and you're giving it the command to build. So when you run this out of your project directory, all my files are relative to my project directory. It's just going to build it. And it's just going to put that compiled app in the temp directory. Then the next command that you need is the instruments command. And this is where you see that trace template is needed. And you need to give it a place to put the trace output files. I haven't had a use for these. You may be able to use them for debugging. They put some of that, the verbiage that you're seeing down at the bottom, that's where that goes, and it's stored in an XML format. So to me, it's not too easy to decipher. I think you could probably open it in instruments to get something useful out of it. But to me, what comes out on the screen is enough for debugging. You give the location of the app that you just built there in the temp directory, and you need a results path, which gives you something else. This is if you want to run it headless and you don't want to look at it. I don't look at the output of it. I just look at the output on the screen. And then you tell it which suite script you want to run. And this is where my confession comes in, because my suite is not going to run until it's going to error. But you'll be able to see it just run off the command line. It's not going to run each test I did. It's going to bomb after the first complete test. So there's a couple other things that you can do with this. There's a test library out there. You can make your own test library. There's a test library out there that you can just build off of, and it handles a lot of things like handling alerts. It just gives you more building blocks for automating it. But let's see if I can give you a good example. All right. So every time I have to start the app, after the first time, I have to hit reset. I have to clear the inputs, and I have to start again. So I made a startup function. So instead of having to put this into every script, my script looks like this. Startup, enter name, next, enter age, next, click new. All the detail about where it is on the screen and which item in the buttons array you want to click is hidden. So if you're working with the team, one person can build this and the rest of the team can just concentrate on what's sensible about it. If you compare it with the original no-tal test, there you go. A little bit better. And all you do to use it is import it. Not too much, right? Is import it at the beginning of your test suite. Then those functions are available to you. And the great thing about that is, so what I was doing at the beginning was dealing with some incompatibilities. When I build it and run it, it's running on iOS 7, and there's something in my test that's not liking it. And it's something with the alert handling. So the great thing is, since I have a library, I can just deal with that in one place with the alert handling. What's working? How do I get past this button click? How do I get it in iOS 7 to identify this field that I want it to work with? So it makes it a lot easier to handle the upgrades. After I added the tune-up lets you group your tests into functions and tie your logging to your functions. I haven't investigated it too much because this is pretty much the functionality that I need at this point. But I did kind of try to dig a little bit further to how a tester might care about using it. Actually running a logging message so you can just run the full suite and then look and see what failed and where it failed and get some good logging output. You can use that library to get a more robust suite. Another problem that I ran into with logging is when you're running it from the command line as a developer, you're lacking the Xcode logging field. And this is kind of stupid, but it took me forever to figure it out. The way around that is to use your console. The output logs from your actual app, anything that you put in with NSLog are going to go to console. So save yourself a day of heartache, and that's where you can go for that. And one step more robust and even less well-known territory for me is assertions. If you actually want to have the correctness in your app, and all I used it for, like I said, I was trying to get a calculation. I didn't do anything super, robust, testy, like making sure when I click this button, this screen contained the right text. I just checked that the calculation number matched at the end. Boop, boop, click, 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 click. Doesn't match. So you can just, with the tune-up suite, you get support for assertions. And it'll bomb out if your assertion fails instead of running, well, mine initially showed it runs through all the tests and it just fails, 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 and then you have to dig back through and find out what went wrong. It's something that somebody else wrote. He actually wrote a book that's one of my resources for this about iOS automation available on Pragmatic Publishing. It's linked in my slides, but it's a really great resource. I didn't find it to be complete. Some of the problems and the hurdles that I'm talking about, like where the logs go, and why you want to stop that thing. He doesn't get into some of those details. And I found a couple other online resources that gave me those details. But he wrote that library, and I haven't even checked before this talk to see if there's an update to it. Probably there's an update to it that will deal with my alert problem. Other cool stuff you can do if you have dealt with memory leaks or weird errors that you're trying to find. You can use, if you use instruments more with your development, you can run other instruments with the automation. So if you're trying to find a memory leak, you'll run the automation and check for that memory leak in that instrument. And I read that you can create custom templates for your testing. That's why you create that basic template. You can put more into that, but I don't know what you can do for that. But somebody that's doing more robust or more detailed and interesting iOS development might get some use out of that. And another cool library that you can use, in addition to TuneUp, is the UI AutoMonkey, which will wreak havoc on your app and take random things and try to break it, like Netflix's Monkey does. If you've heard about their Chaos Monkey, for just random testing instead of formulaic functional testing. So that's everything that I have to show you guys. Are there any other questions? Okay. It's code here? Here for the assert? Yes, it is. It's looking at the target app that we've defined, or the target simulator that we defined, and you can, something like that, you can run on devices too. It doesn't have to be on the simulator. Looking at the frontmost app, whatever's running in the front, the main window of that app, and it's looking in throughout all the static text on the screen for that text, which is not going to find it's going to Well, oh, yeah, for your assertions, yes, it's the same way. This is the same syntax. I didn't write a library for it, but this is the same syntax that you would use to select a specific UI element. Yeah, you could get it specific if you want this button, you know, in this portion of the screen. You can even specify by dimensions. You can say, you know, X over and Y down.
Like text.
Yeah, you get it as an array for the section of the screen that you're, for the view that you're looking at. You get an array of all the text fields in that view. You can say what number text field in that array you want, and this is the text match what you expect to find. I might have only put one assertion in my example, but I have it in my real app test code because it was complicated to get through. Do you remember the calculation screen at the end. That has a lot of different text fields. It was complicated to get through that and find out what you could say specifically. You know, this calculation I want to do this value, this calculation I want this value, and this total at the end. That's how I use it. I don't know. I know you can use this with Jenkins, and I've seen a lot. I haven't tried it yet. I'm just trying to use Jenkins for my web testing headless. Seen a lot of Stack Overflow comments about Jenkins, so I don't know how difficult it is to get it started. I think it's challenging enough to run Jenkins against multiple web instances headless, so I don't know. It might be possible, but I bet it's challenging. But I'm, you know, speaking from complete ignorance. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. You have to specify which you would have to run multiple instances in similar and call it which instance. I'll think on that. Give me contact information. I'll tell you if I find out. Anybody else? Thank you.
All right, I'm going to put the survey link back up here, so stick around so we can't see the phone casts. Give everyone about 5 minutes here to do the survey, but if anyone has anything they'd like to share or talk about what they've been working on, cool.
We're co-founders of a startup in Chattanooga, Tennessee. We're developing reality. Right now we're concentrating on iPad rather. We're solving what I think are most interesting problems that we're trying to solve. But we're looking for an iOS developer who's, basically. So if you guys are looking for contract work, potential to work with a startup full time, come find something.
Hey, while we're waiting, why not introduce ourselves? We usually do that at the beginning of the meeting, but we got some time. So I'm Joseph from Beta. I work here at VMware. I'm a developer. I like to do a lot of different stuff. I've done .NET. I've done embedded work for the .NET. I've done embedded work after .NET. I've done Android recently. I'm doing a lot of SQL now. And I don't really have a favorite. I like to spread myself to different kinds. I'm not looking for a picture that specific, but I'll be your name and background and BMI, the host company here, is a performing rights organization. They administer the performing right for musical works generally. So that, like, if you're a songwriter and you wrote, let's say, Let It Go, Let It Go. You said Let It Go, and you want to sell it to Disney and have them put it in a movie and maybe on radio stations too. You as a songwriter basically want to collect money from all the different venues that play that song, because according to U.S. law, you're entitled to be paid royalty every time that song is played. How are you going to do it? Are you going to walk to every bar? Essentially, BMI and two other organizations, CSAC and ASCAP, have what's it called, the consent decree to go collect the money from all these venues and broadcasters and disseminate the collected money to different songwriters that want to sign up. So basically, you either sign up with BMI, ASCAP, or CSAC, and depending on your contract, you get a different percentage. I have no idea how that works. I'm just a programmer, not in licensing royalties or whatever. There's only 4 people do this stuff. And Ed could probably explain it better. Ken will probably explain it better than I can.
Yeah.
And this place is a nonprofit, and it's run like a nonprofit. Take whatever you want from that. So that's it. Who are you?
But I'm slowly getting to enjoy them. In my spare time, I know that. But yeah. But,
Let's go left. Practically with this, right?
I'm more than and also makes sense
I'm Mario. I get the facility. Yeah. But I do a whole very much. So, yeah.
So you work on backgrounds and science work on I'm Jake Hamilton. I work for our software. Today, I'm mostly developing JavaScript, Java applications. Excited about Clojure, by the way. Anybody else interested in that? Talk to me. I don't know a lot about it. We've been learning, studying, and we don't have a main gig for it yet, but it's really exciting. Functional programming is really exciting. Needing to do it down.
My name is Bruce Alar, and I'm a software developer at Vanderbilt. Mainly, we're starting to get our own iOS apps. So.
Let's get one example of your BMI and perspective.
Well, this is Lauren O'Meara.
You know me. Hi.
Go ahead.
I'm Ed Jones, a generalist. I've done a little bit of everything. Did COBOL for a lot of years. Just say.
Somebody snickered when he said COBOL.
Yeah, it's part of my retirement plan, actually. Not putting anything away, just plan to do consulting later on. Today, I did Java and .NET.
My name is Julian Benson. I'm the DevOps for a startup called Untitled Chapter. I'm working on an iOS app. So. Got it.
Scott Weston.
VP on JavaScript. Just the stages I work with now. Sorry, I just started last week. It's incredible. So, right now they have to do it.
The
Wait, come over here. Hey, this. Hey, you don't ask for that.
where you guys?
Mine's here, I work at Mentos, that's some freelance, so, iOS and so, yeah.
My name is Mom Patterson. I'm a technical recruiter of database, not here to correct, but I'm to learn. So, and yeah.
The last 10 years, we've been Java.
American, I'm a meeting manager to that was implementing Flutter and apps. My name is James. I work for I'm actually not. Both platforms. Just here.
Yeah, in case you didn't get it, it's got the Google survey, right?
Yeah.
And you fill it out, you're eligible to win the Chromecast.
Yeah, Chromecast, full site card, good for a month of free training, and some random Google stuff that we'll pass out too. So, have the responses here. We have everything numbered. Don't care about your info, just trying to do it well. Eventually, we're going to write a mobile app to pick the thing, but we've been talking about this for months. We'll get around to it, I promise. So I'm going to ask you to pick a number between 1 and 16. 12 is Clint Hodges. No. Karen McCarthy. Clint Hodges. Very cool.
Is he not here again?
Aaron or Clint, I don't care.
You
Use the fake
don't
name,
care?
please remember it. Yeah, use the fake one, but we gotta tie it back. So.
Are you really bad at pronunciation, maybe?
Sean Edmondson.
Seven. Number 7 is Dick Shanahan.
Is it the right side? It must be the wrong side. Are you last week's?
Oh, you're last
It's a football program.
Yeah, for tonight's entertainment.
Very fun. Give me a second. See, I renamed the survey from last month because it was also funny.
Where the action is.
No.
Hey, can I randomly solicit the audience?
Yeah, I want to take
Your
care of that.
opportunity? Take care of that.
Yeah, that's what people are.
Oh, man.
It's like 3 random people.
Okay. Where's the other?
This is the first one, this is the second one, this is the front.
I just gotta get rid. Okay, oh shoot, how can I do this without chaos? Killing
Number
me.
between 1 and 12.
Yeah.
or actually, there's 30 people here, I think.
Right.
So.
I was gonna say guess a number, but then everybody shouts a number
Discount,
at me.
number between 1 and 27. There can't be me, Chris, or Ed. Or what? You.
Those are jelly beans.
Who likes jelly beans?
Sure. Can we write a random guy? Like,
Yeah, but then how do I assign it to a person?
You just have around the room. You should write down all the names and then you draw from outside.
your inaccurate counting will also further randomize the algorithm.
Our next meeting will be around the development of an app which actually does this.
I tell you what, I'll randomly number the people here, and you tell me a number, and I will then,
How many people are there?
30.
30. Well, go 26.
Ready?
Yes.
Sure, I'll just give you some numbers. 5.
Okay, wait, I gotta jelly
What a
beans number 5.
I don't want that stuff. We're waiting off a long time for $45 Chromecast. 19.
Okay.
Love this.
Okay.
It can't be the same guy.
You're nice. Yay. Give me another number.
42 if you want to modulate it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay, well, mine.
42.
Our 10 module is 26. So.
No, so we said 30, right? So
Yeah, I mean, you can just
16.
count
No,
around.
it's 26 because the
Did
you
you
need
pick your favorite person?
If you count in a circle, it will modulate it for you.
Okay.
Just like a rotating
16.
dial.
42 modules is 26. 26 is
Okay, all right, so 16. You're 16.
There you go.
We're gonna sort it out with that. Sorry.
We did it.
And then we do both leave after it's going to be awesome.
Okay, can I do my solicitation now?